I apologize. Again, I was stating from C Corp, S Corps, LLCs, PLCCs, 5031C8s, and going into non-prop. These would be the equivalent of a tax write-off. Why is this important? I don't know if most of you know, but you know who John Abramoff is. He was a man that was tried and convicted for turning around and buying politicians' votes in Florida. This would have been eventually what we're going to see with ultra-wealthy. People that have access of over $1 million for political donations. Ms. Raskin, to make your argument that you were stating, the person that Mr. Abramoff would be what eventually is going to happen within the super PAC world, or if we do not create the Volcker rule in a controlled market. What's going to happen is due to capital influx flows, and particularly in Sydney, Shanghai, and London. The volume is seen from a mathematical perspective in computer science as what, Ms. Raskin? As delta, or volume. Delta is defined, and excuse me because I did have that kind of mixed up a little. It's actually, time is seen by volume from a computer science aspect. What that means is through capital influx flows, using a derivative state, you are seeing the volume move and to be able to create the market. An example would be this is the G20 summit that we saw, and when we looked at at the NASDAQ between the hours up to 11 o'clock and at 1. Those were excuse my French, I apologize, was the changing of when London and Sydney shut down due to the merging markets. This was after the G20 summit just here recently. If you look at all those, predominantly money that came in were due to ETFs and high base volume frequency trading from subsidies from around the world. Why was that important? That was an anomaly within the market because the S&P and the Dow were still up while those were down during those hours. That's a blatant anomaly. Now, why does that matter when we look at maintenance margin percent? Mrs. Raskin, Lehman Brothers was implied, and you guys had spoken as the federal governor's chair, the FDIC, and the Security Council, that Lehman Brothers was leveraged to 30-1. That is the same marginal aspect that is typical in most option pricing sequencing. That is why it's really scared. This is the mathematical proof that the argument of Alan Greenspan, the belief that he is able to see where AIG was indirectly helping Lehman Brothers, is being able to be proven. Due to the commissional costs that Lehman was hedging, they were isolating their maintenance margin costs because of global consumption and due to their risk volume. This is AKA they were isolating their delta or their time. What they were doing was looking at long-term yields compared to short-term yields. This is why, if you would like to know my economic forecast, I say that we have anywhere between 4.2 to 4.7 trillion outstanding dollars. We will not see the Federal Reserve taper here in December. We will see the taper come March to June. And due to the fact of seasonal data and hours worked, if you were looked at it from a screen perspective, cough, cough, that George Ackerman and Mrs. Yellen's husband looked at when you looked at seasonal work and the hours worked based on seasonal compared to non-farm payroll, you'll see my isolation within CNI data and looking at credit risks, which is the argument of Esther George. Now, this is important because this market explains now that we are isolating ourselves again to the commodity cycle, which is what we did in 1932. This is why the work of Mr. Bernanke is very interesting. Due to the belief, depending on your political ideology, we are now onto global commodity cycle, which means any issues from water, typhoons, hurricanes, anything like that will indirectly have a ripple effect within the financial market. To certain people within the financial world, CNBC, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Forbes Magazine, Barron's, this is why my economic forecasts have been able to be explained. The modeling is very easy when you understand comparison mapping, or as I call it, process flow charting. To help you guys understand it, here within the next coming weeks, we will see the VIX rise anywhere upwards of 2 to 4%, topping out between 16 and 18 come the first week to second week of January if we don't see a budget deal in Washington. I am being this detailed for a reason. I understand the work that I do. I understand the hurt that I have seen. I can do this daily. The only reason I am doing this is due to professors that I cherish at my university. Dr. Tom Edmonds, who is a second star general for the Air Force and the ex-sheriff of my county. Dr. Tom Carey, who is a professor of management at my local university and whose uncle is the CIA director under Lynn B. Those professors helped steer me to be able to explain to you and do what I'm doing right now. To you as a society, I don't trust you. I don't like people. I see the world in numbers. I hope you guys can eventually understand that.